All right, welcome back, guys. So we're going to shift gears. Got us well started this morning with Griff. And now we're going to shift to another way to look at and think about learning, and that is Tom Hardison is going to talk to us about the alchemy of teams. And Tom and I and some others have been meeting regularly doing true storytelling circles where we do nothing except not talk about trading. We talk about everything else with true stories and work in progress and the whole cycle of safety, trust, truth, and opportunity has been absolutely revolutionary in the spin-offs of what that's done. I've been open and honest talking about projects that I'm engaged in at work that are transforming the Army, and they kind of saw that stuff being developed in real time with all the challenges and the freeing feeling of being able to talk about those things out loud. Really helped me clear the deck and get things organized. I ended up getting a best-selling author to write a 100-page executive summary of his best-selling book just for the Army, and he gave it to us for free. But I'm making the Army buy it with money so that he's rewarded. And he gave me permission to edit any of that text and use it in any way that I want. And he and I are working together on an AI project with DARPA. And he just got interviewed by Jordan Peterson on his podcast with 5 million subscribers. And those two monkeys spent 10 minutes talking about me and my research partner, Rich McConnell, and the creativity work that we're doing at Army University. You don't know how powerful that's going to be. Yeah, but yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. Some percentage of 5 million people that hear that podcast are going to want to talk to me and my buddy. So I'm going to hand them off to Rich. So he likes talking to people. I don't. I just like doing the work. But the creativity stuff that I'm working with Angus Fletcher on, I talked about meeting him and how the improbability of that happening. And it was precisely because of the principles of safety, trust, truth, that opportunity flourished. And that has become the Creativity 101 course that's on Rizuku and available. It's going to be a Creativity 202 course, which is I'm going to take the book he wrote for us and turn that into trader speak. And the unleashed power of that is astronomical. Well, part of that, Tom's specialty is in the alchemy of teams and seeing how people get together and can do more than just trade ideas, but actually build collaborative teams. There's a difference between a bunch of people in a room and a group of people in a room and a team of people in a room. And it's refined work in the same way that Griff kind of synthesized a lot of words on a page into golden nuggets that can be leveraged. Tom's going to talk to us about the alchemy of teams. So good morning, young fella. Always good to see you. This feels like every Saturday morning, doesn't it?
It does. And it's Sunday. And yeah. I'm sorry I missed yesterday. I look forward to catching up on the recordings. But let me share a screen. All right. Is that coming across for everybody? Okay, thanks for the hand signals. So I'm going to start with building great teams and talk about how we overcome leadership challenges that get in our way of reaching and sustaining high performance in teams. I'm also going to attempt to bridge that to, so how am I applying that to trading as well? And so we'll see how this goes. So a bit of my journey so far through life. So in the upper left, I grew up from about 8 years of age to 18, going to my grandparents' farm, raising avocados and lemons and grapefruit. And the trees on the right in this photo, I helped plant about 45 years ago. And the trees on the left actually are a neighbor's property. And the picture is in 2017 when the Thomas fire blew through Southern California. And the fire went to the edge of my dad's property now and stopped. Combination of wind, environmental materials, the men that worked with my dad on the property, taking care of things. But just being on that edge feels like, okay, life can be that abrupt and that narrow a ridge between us. The picture on the right is where I spent my summers. I still go back. This is on the Ventura coast, memorialized by the Beach Boys Surfing USA. And that's where I first learned to live and play in water, learning to surf at the time and how to be with something much bigger than me and try to play with it. So some of those carry over to my trading. The third picture is my dad's a civil engineer and spent first half of his life building dams and pipelines. And so we moved around a lot growing up on different projects. And this is a dam Guri Dam in Venezuela. And I spent a couple summers working there, one summer in the powerhouse on the right, and the second summer working on the expansion, building the Earthfill Dam. So how do we build things that last is really important to me and made a difference. And that then led to my 28 years helping grow businesses at HP. And I was incredibly fortunate to be there at the last 10 years of Bill and Dave being involved, at kind of the peak, the apex of HP's growth curve. And then I also spent another 14 years there managing through the transitions that happened in the beginning of HP not being the same company that it was, yet not giving in. The leaders of the two companies that have split off are people I worked with, and they're trying to bring both pieces back. So a lot of my learning about teams was how do you grow things in a fairly large organization? 80,000 people when I started, got as big as 400,000 people, and trying to influence change across that. So I started to learn about coaching in 2002 as part of the HP Compact merger. And I've been coaching since I left HP at the end of 2012. I've been coaching leaders in organizations. And I started learning about trading in 2009 by doing every home study course I could do through Van Tharp. And then finally joined a day trading course with Ken 2 years ago, and was really fortunate to be able to watch through the COVID cycle, probably 80% of the daily podcast, and joined in at the end of 2020. I joined in some for a few bar by bar practices, which really helped me refine things. I also practice Aikido. I've been doing that for about 8 years. Spend my time really family, friends, and learning communities, which is what I love about this network that Ken has been fostering, this garden of learning. Gardening and walking are what bring me joy and reconnection to the earth. So that's my background. I did a Earlier this year, I did a number of interviews with 21 different leaders and put together a white paper, which is available, really talking about what are the challenges we face in organizations. So I'll do a quick intro to this, also a quick intro to the Alchemy of Teams video, which goes into a little more depth of 8 steps we can do to do this. But the first challenge, which I experienced in all kinds of detail in my trading life, is emotions, energy in motion inside of me that causes me to engage or disengage with what is really going on in the market. And my level of my capacity to engage is, how do I manage the balance of my emotions? And I run into that with every single coaching client I work with. It's our ability to engage with the people around us, with the organization, is based upon our sensory motor system, our emotional system, our cognitive capacity to deal with it. And usually we're making up a story and a projection about what's going on around us until we can step back and say, oh, that was just my reaction going on. And when I can begin to see my emotions and my reaction, then I can begin to see how I'm engaging or not engaging. And then I can begin to adjust. The expertise in micromanagement, the more I learn, the more detail I get involved with, especially as an engineer, the more I try to micromanage and dial things in tighter and tighter. And that gets in my way. I can overdo it. And I need to just step back and allow things to happen. So what I experience in my trading is my emotions and my micromanagement about details really have gotten in my way. So I've seen equity curves. I went back this year to 1998 and saw my equity curve go up as I started to learn and caught Cisco as it was spiking going in 97 to 99 and had a fun little blip there. And then I caught the dip down 40% after that. And then another up and another big down. So the biggest challenge I had was, how do I grow my capacity fast enough to deal with the complexity of the changing markets around me? And that's what organizations experience with managers and leaders. As businesses scale and grow and add people, the complexity expands. And so the capacity of the people to be able to manage that growing complexity becomes critical. And it needs to be done through teams, because it's the diverse perspective that bring insight and the ability to grow the collective capacity so that the outcomes and the insights are greater than the sum of the individuals is what really distinguishes teams, and what Bill and Dave helped me learn how to do and begin to practice in an organizational context. And it takes cultivating leadership systems and the culture. My first leadership development program, where I was a facilitator, was helping learn a process of management to bring new leaders in HP and all leaders into a more common approach to how do we manage growth and how do we manage teams and organizations. And finally, how do we begin to learn to create with disruptive events or transitions? So those are the challenges that seem to perpetuate from all the reading I've done, all the people I've worked with, and my recent interviews. So a frame of looking at this that I know I've started with many times is, well, I got to build a business. And I got to build a business that makes a difference for the people around me in this evolving world. And what I really don't pay attention to until it begins to get in my way is my lack of organization. Oh, I don't have the systems I need. I don't have the processes. I don't have the structure I need. I don't have the people around me I need. And So then I do the minimum I need there. And I don't really pay attention to culture. And teams, well, teams, you just put people together and they figure it out. Well, no, they don't. And when we get back to people, part of our challenge that I experienced is I was trained in scientific management as an industrial engineer, the methods of Frederick Taylor, of how do you break tasks down to the minimum possible steps that someone could repeatably do consistently for quality and efficiency. And then we begin to treat organizations as machines, and the Sloan management system that was put in place for large industrial machines for General Motors. Well, people are not machines. We happen to be complex adaptive organisms that are a combination of neurology and biology interacting together in a chemical soup that facilitates communication between different parts of our system. So how we learn to develop as people and then teams and culture to build an organization and make a business successful is what I find most enjoyable to do. And it's about learning to observe this complex system of oneself and the teams around us, identifying what I need to do, what I can develop, what I need to practice, and then reflecting on that. And doing that together with others of assessing, well, what are we learning as a community here? What are we designing that's going to enable us to co-create more effectively going forward? How do we review the progress we're making? So I'm appreciating this opportunity to be in the research weekend, to just be in this assessing, co-creating, reviewing with all of you. And then identifying what are my takeaways, what are my gaps, what am I going to focus on developing and practicing to make progress on, to help us as a learning community cultivate our collective mastery. So that's a frame. And when I think about the alchemy of teams, it begins with oneself, myself, and others. And it begins with a design. What is it trying to put together? Is it a work group to accomplish a specific function, an accounting team that breaks it down and people may operate independently? A team, or are we just teaming together in the moment? Or a learning community that helps each other learn and grow? So design is the first step. A second step is really getting to our purpose and motivation and what's the greater purpose we want to achieve. The third step is looking at what are the external systems around us and what's the context. What things are clear, what things need analysis, what things are going to emerge and we don't know, and when are we in chaos, and how do we manage it? The relationships that we build is the fourth step, and between each other. So this roundabout that Ken has been teaching us about, and Dr. David Boji has been helping us learn about storytelling and dialogue, where we build that safety, trust, truth, and opportunity to learn and explore. A fifth step is really taking a look at the tasks in the internal systems and how do we get those done. I go through these in more detail in the video, so I'm going to just keep on going at a quick overview as an intro here. And the sixth step is the culture of development. How do we make this transition from reacting, which I spent the vast majority of my trading experience doing? I had a few lucky hits, and then when I tried to take control after I left HP, and it was all my money to manage, I reacted. And I had very miserable results. Big drawdown. And I needed to begin to say, well, how am I reacting? And how do I move to creating and integrating and transforming? But I had to dig into what are all my reactive patterns and tendencies and become aware of how they show up, when they get triggered, the monkey mind. And I needed to build the creative competencies. And having an accountability partner that I'm meeting with every week on my trading and how I'm doing this has been incredibly helpful. The bar by bar reviews and practicing those, another great practice to help me learn how to create in the moment. And then stepping back from a macro level to look at learning. Okay, what's my vision of where I want to go? What are the mental models I have that are getting in my way? How do I want to shift mental models? What are the systems and patterns and events that I'm reacting to? And what am I learning about myself as a complex adaptive system? How just at a very neurological level, my sensory motor system goes into fight, flight, or freeze automatically. My central nervous system kicks in, my emotions light up, my cognitive system tries to predict what to do next. Language flies out of my mouth sometimes before I know what I'm saying. And then I make up a story, which is usually about how I'm not the problem and it's something else, until I can step back and observe how maybe the way I'm making sense of it, my protective strategies, my beliefs and values might be holding me back. And I need to be able to shift and say, oh, how do I observe how my own identity might be getting in my way of an engineer who thinks he knows what he's doing and is always trying to get it right. And maybe that gets in my way. I know it does. So learning about myself is helping me help my clients. It's helping me with my trading. It's also helping me with the 8th step here of just leadership of observing self and system, identifying where I am, accepting my current reality, committing to a few steps I can take, and beginning to practice what I want for the future now with accountability partners in a learning community. So that's 8 steps that help cultivate collective mastery in a team. A lot of this comes from a lot of teachers I've had, including Ken. And just a couple of thoughts to leave is a Chinese proverb here. If we want 1 year of prosperity, we grow grain. If we want 10 years of prosperity, we grow trees. And is what I think Ken is doing is creating a garden for 100 years of prosperity, growing people, us as a community. This happens to be my family when my oldest got married last year in a cactus garden, improvising because the place he was going to be married with his wife now was shut down due to fire 2 days before the wedding. So we improvised and found a location. And that's the power of people working together to adapt. So I go back to Peter Drucker as one of my key principal thinkers on leadership. And our first job is taking charge of our own energy and then helping to orchestrate the energy of those around us. I just invite each of us to just observe and learn to compassionately accept where I am right now. I missed that trade. Okay. What am I learning from it? What do I want to create? And what's going to help me cultivate my own leadership and support the growth of those around me? So those are my attempt to connect what I've learned about leadership and developing teams and organizations and businesses with how do we do that in a trading community where we can observe and compassionately accept where I am now in my trading and refocus on where I want to be, and how can we learn together to make that happen? Uh-huh.
If you don't think I'm going to have a cunning plan to cleverly have Tom help us with the growth and management of the learning teams in Rizuku, you don't know me very well, because I'm a sneaky guy. You want a guy that knows how to coach, has skin in the game, has the Aikido master sense of push me, pull you, the jujitsu of Aikido, if I can say it. One of my senior teachers was a Aikijutsu, so he combined the sensibility and gentleness of Aikido with the ruthless finishing techniques of jujitsu. He can also strike, and he's a weapons master too. I decided to study with him when, in the first class I ever took with him, I was standing up straight, and he ran at me, dove over my head, and executed a perfect break fall without making a sound. The sound he made was whoosh when he hit the ground and landed perfectly on his feet, ready to fight, or whatever, at age 60. I said, okay, got it. I didn't need any further explanation. So I thought magnificent work. The power of genuine honesty and design thinking and personal touch. That's what the world wants, is direct, humble, committed truth. So thanks for that, Tom. I'm going to pass the talking stick to the team for questions, comments.
Hey, Tom, I just wanted to, I really liked at the end part when you were talking about, what, kind of what do I want to create for myself, my family, and my communities, and how to, what helps me to cultivate my leadership and stuff. And that part really, I was taking notes on that part, because that part really resonated with me, and this idea of like, what am I doing to add value, and how, when I get on that kind of idea, a lot of creativity, like Ken said, comes along, a lot of great ideas when I'm asking the right questions, kind of. So thank you for that. I really liked it. Thank you.
Thank you, Griffin. Yeah. Yeah, I guess my grandfather used to say, well, let's just leave things a little bit better than we found them this morning, as we set out to move the sprinklers to water the trees.
Hi, Tom. This was really brilliant. I think this is the presentation I'm going to review right after we're done with the seminar or the research weekend. I loved what you were talking about. I've been committed to leading teams at my work since 2013, and I'm constantly trying to find a way to get the team working better. And both, I mean, even simply defining what does it mean for your team to work better. Sometimes even just that simple definition of how do we get better is that question sometimes is hard, difficult to answer. When you talked about the blaming cycle, I see that all the time from people on my team, and I do it too. Oh, well, we were late with this delivery because, well, this tool sucks and the tool slowed us down, and we just weren't able to get it done in time. But the truth of it is, we know how long the tool takes to run ahead of time when we're doing the planning, and we need to be able to account for this, and we need to not be accepting these excuses as individuals. We need to just be taking responsibility. So that really resonated with me. And then I was just, as you're talking about building the team, and I'm thinking from a sort of a bigger perspective. I have a team, and we have other leaders that have teams, and now we're trying to get the teams to work together more efficiently. So it's a team of a group of teams working together towards a bigger project, and then making sure that we're working with them efficiently, and we're not blaming the other team, but and then not only are we helping ourselves within our team, but we're also extending our hand and helping others. And then the different, what the biggest challenge is the leaders of other teams nobody thinks the same way, even though we're in the same company. They think a different way than I do. And I'm not saying I'm better than they are, they're better than I am, but it's just getting this to work together towards the same goal, help each other out, not blame on other teams when things aren't get done. It's just a real world problem that I'm facing on a daily basis. So this is something I'm really going to have to study what you're talking about. And I would even go expand this even further. How do we get our politicians to think the way that you think? How do we get all the politicians to think, okay, I have a team, I'm a senator from Florida and I have a team. How do I collaborate with the senator from Virginia or from California for us to get things done together in a way that improves our country? Like that's, if we can get to that level, we would have evolved as a species, I think. So it really resonated with me what you're talking about. And you went through it pretty fast, the whole alchemy part. So I think if you don't mind, I'm going to go back through that and send you individual questions about the different components. I'd like to know how you think about these things and how you solve the set of challenges you presented at the beginning. How does that mesh with the alchemy? Sort of what parts you apply to which challenge. So I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
You're welcome, Zona. And I'd offer there on the research weekend in Rizuku, there's a 22-minute video where I spent more time on the alchemy of teams. Specifically for today, I shortened that bit. And I'm happy to have a conversation. So,
I was thinking about teams and the 20 mule team back in the 1800s. Guys thought it was a good idea to get 20 mules, that patient, collaborative, social animal, to hook them up to a wagon the size of a semi-trailer, pull that across the Great Plains over the Rockies into the middle of Death Valley to mine borax, and then carry that back to Boston for industrial use. They thought that was a good idea. And, mules are easy to persuade. There are hairpin turns in those trails over the Rockies where when they're moving that 20 mule team around the hairpin turn, there are as many as 4 mules at a time that are suspended over 1,000-foot chasm. Now, try to get your kids dressed and into the car to go wherever you're going on time. You know how easy that is. Now, figure out how you organize those 20 mules to do that. And now think about the 5 internal parts that we talked about this morning with Griff. The student who's paying attention, the person synthesizing, the person making the judgment, the person reflecting and feeling, and all those internal parts are your internal components. Are they a team, or are they 20 mules pulling at cross purposes? How are you getting all that stuff organized? So first, regulate yourself. Well, start with a guy that knows how to lay out a garden. I learned so much from watching my grandfather tend his garden and raise, his walnut trees and all that. The same care that he used in shaving his face every morning with a straight razor and a Williams cup soap. It's all the same thing. And so every time I shave in the morning, it's with a shaving brush and Williams cup soap and a safety razor. I'm not smart enough to not use a straight edge. I'm not as focused as he was. But that's my story of gratitude about my grandfather and a reminder of what quiet craftsmanship is like. And so you're exactly right, Zoran, about the, what do you do when everything is done? That's like when you brought your first child home from the hospital. birth happened and there it was, and everybody's in tubes and having to sign this and papers and get everybody bundled, and you drive home and you open the door and walk inside and close the door, and bam, everything just changed. Now, what do I do next? And then what do I do after that? And what's the next? Well, it just keeps going. And so that new integration and taking first steps and provisional gardens. And that's why I cherish the Saturday morning conversations we have in our true story circle, the work in progress story circle, which you guys are all invited to attend. And we talk about everything except trading, but then as we know, everything is trading anyway. So it inevitably gets back there. But that's what it feels like as you're slowly crafting your work plan and laying it out by hand. And draftsmen, and sketch artists. There's real power in that. It gets right to the seeing, hearing, feeling, doing over time. That's the 5 ways of knowing, is the hand-drawn sketches. I've had professionals look at my stuff and say, you're such a monkey. You're drawing these, you should have a nice, let me show you this nice, clean PowerPoint template. It just, really? Take this, I'm going to crush the remaining bits of unique creativity and life out of it. The sketch, the power of that is really crucial. Don't underestimate the power of you and your pencil and your ideas on a blank sheet every so often. Yeah, you got to ship finished product and get to where the code works. Right? The code's got to work so you can sleep. But at the other end of that spectrum was that first idea about what could that engine look like, and then the final delivery of that and that next iteration is the working model. So that's where that coaching and team building all along the way, I wanted to say. Aho.
Tom, I really loved, and I'm not sure how intentional this was on your part or not, but your first point was about emotions, energy inside, in motion. And you concluded with a quote at the end about energy management. And that's what I find, for me, seems to be like a fundamental building block for that needs to be identified and grappled with, is my own personal energy, the energy of the group, and getting all of the energy aligned. So for me, I really resonated with all of it all boils down to energy management. It's my own personal energy, and the energy of the team and the interactions. And so I really appreciated how the beginning and the end connected everything together. Aho.
Thank you, Glenn. Yeah, it's we're always exchanging, we think, just information sometimes, and we're always exchanging energy and information. Our body is picking up on the energy unconsciously most of the time. Fun place to play.
The garden gives back.
Yeah.
Oh.
So Tom, as your storytelling partner, I guess I'll have to kick in here something. I'm really impressed by two things. One is the depth of knowledge that was displayed on the hand-drawn exhibits that you produce, and just the hand-drawing exhibits you produce. it would, because I agree with what Ken said, you know, it has an expressive value that the typewritten page just doesn't pick up on. And I could see it allowed you a lot of freedom to get your ideas out there. So thank you so much. I don't have a team to lead, so don't. In the times I did try in my life, I had up to 10 employees at one time. And I learned that I was not a good manager, and I just kind of shut that all down and became a one-man practitioner and escaped that whole worrying about organization. All I had to do was get up early and go to work. So yeah, it's pretty impressive, that HP background, and then the quotes about General Motors, and when young adults ask me about the profession of architecture, and I realize what skill set they must have to be asking that, as I always say, well, also look at a little known program called industrial design. You know, it may not have the glitz of the architecture, but you know, you're going to produce a product. And when you learn to produce a product, you're going to be able to sell 100,000 of them. But all I have to sell is myself. And I can only sell that 1 hour at a time, basically, you know, and then eventually I got a little smarter than that and, you know, just set a rate. But yeah, industrial design, it would have been a fascinating path to have gone down as opposed to what I did. But I could see you were in the thick of it, and it was really nice to see that. Thank you.
Thank you, man. Yeah.
When an
You
architect
and
tells
Ken
you,
inspired
yeah.
me.
When an architect tells you your handwritten drawings are pretty good, you should listen. Oh,
Well, I wouldn't be here talking about this without the support of Ken and Van, and Bill and Betty, who have been, and Ken, who have been through this storytelling community. Thank you.
I actually brought that storytelling community to the military college, and Ken Hum and I were in there as like spies, as a bunch of army monkeys. We're trying to work with David Bogie and the hippies about storytelling. There were some magical moments that you see Ken laughing. He knows exactly why, but some amazing opportunities come out of that when you can create safety, trust, and truth can emerge. Opportunities are inevitable. You can't even pick them all up. That's how much happens when you free that energy to focus on that part of it instead of always trying to proof or detect what the other guy's really up to. The freeing energy of that is just unbelievable. And you learn to trust your own inner voices too. As one of those storytelling projects had guys write an essay of their own best advice to their 20-year-old self. And I'm going to hang that lesson in I'll make sure you guys all get invited to the Catalyst workshop so you can see that. What happens is when you think about your life and synthesize it into a 5-minute elevator speech to your 20-year-old self and then tell it out loud in public that other people are going to hear, you end up just telling the truth about what you've really learned. And then you get to listen to yourself telling the truth about life. And that's incredibly empowering. And you realize you're a person that can tell the truth. And then when you hear other people telling their truths, you realize, oh yeah, that's what the truth sounds like. And you sort of get used to that. And when you get used to hearing the truth being told, it's a trivial matter. Say, oh, well, when you hear other things, oh, well, that's not even true. Because you know what the truth sounds like when it's told. You can't unhear it. So there's a lot of practical reasons why, as well as spiritual and useful tactical reasons why truth telling actually works. And those story circles matter because you're just there to share that truth, and other people are there just to to feel the gift of your truth. Like Sanal's gift to us yesterday. Do you know how hard you know how hard it was for Griff to talk, and how hard it is for Phil suffering right now because he knows what happens next to him. So I'm making him suffer a little bit. But now be Sanal locked up in that room there, and like Rapunzel in the UK, having to put up with Jeff and trading for a living and being a woman, and coming here and telling her story of existential identity to a room full of strangers. But who are not strangers. They're just friends she hasn't met yet, because she knows you can't get in this room unless you've already sort of safety and trust is sort of already baked into the cake. I make it hard enough to get in here that, you can sort of trust that. And then, so what do you do with all those gifts? Like a gentle gardener, draftsman, designer, craftsman, tinker, respecting the piece of wood that you're about ready to work with. And the beauty of wood is that there's actually no such thing as scrap wood. There's just wood that you haven't figured out anything to do with it yet. You don't actually get to say that wood is scrap. That's a reflection on you and not on the wood itself. You know what I mean? It's just, it'll find its own purpose when the time is right. It doesn't even have to have a purpose. Being wood is sufficient. And so we can learn from that. So now that unhurried relationship between you and a piece of wood, the uncarved block, the Taoists call that the state of Pu, being the uncarved block. And what we get to do is roll back from wherever we are in our full development and all that, rolling back to that existential uncarved block of identity, unchanging quality and beauty on the inside. And we are all of that. We're both the uncarved block and the implementation in the world and the appreciation of it. And the reflection we get back in the true stories of others is a reinforcement of that whole loop. So that's what I wanted to say about that. Thanks a lot, Tom. This is going to be so good. It's already good. Got some ideas for you. All right, let's take 10. And Phil, I'm gonna, you're on the clock here in about 10 minutes. Okay. See you guys in a few.